everyone. It's Steve Halley here with the Family Peace Initiative and the Facilitators Tool Chest blog for October of 2020. Today I want to talk with you a little bit about the use of self-disclosure in groups with those who batter. I want you to know that for at least 15 years, from when I first started working with groups, for those 15 years, I thought it was a fundamental law that we should not talk about ourselves. We should keep the conversation on those who are there, that are ordered to our program, programs about them. We shouldn't make it about us. And I practiced that for quite a while until I met a group in a very small town in Kansas that we just started out. It had been, relatively new. There was probably 4 or 5 participants. And it wasn't going well. I pulled every trick out that I knew out of my bag of tricks, trying to help them to talk about themselves, to take accountability for their behavior. And it was like a big fight trying to get people to talk. I was frustrated. I was ready to give up, that this isn't working. And then one day we were talking about emotional abuse. And of course, you can imagine what was going on. My wife, she's the one who's abusive to me, and, I don't really do that. Minimization, denial, and blame. It's what people do when they protect. And one of the men in the group said, well, what about you, Steve? Have you ever been emotionally abusive to your partner? And I understood that I had roughly 3 choices. I could either say, oh no, we're not flipping the script. We're not making this about me. This is about you. You're the one that was ordered here. And I could just push back on them. Or I could lie. Or I could tell the truth. And for some reason, I think it was because I was desperate. I think I had almost given up that I have no answer for how to make this group begin to function. I told the truth. And I said, yes, I have. I've given Dorothy the silent treatment for 3 days. And it hurt her. There's no benefit for my relationship whatsoever. And when I shared that, what I expected was going to happen was they were just going to get up and leave. They're going to say, oh, this is, Steve, you don't belong leading this group. You need to be in this group. You are not credible. And I thought they were going to go and tell all the referral sources and all the, the court system that program is not worth its salt and Steve's a fake. Well, that's not what happened. We got into an incredible conversation about emotional abuse, why we use it, what's the impact on, what's our desired impact on our partners and the people that we're pointing that to, and what's going on with us when we pull that form of cruelty out of our bag. It was an amazing group. And I recognized there that something had happened. I'd found a key to unlock a door into a deeper section of people's personal stories, that they were needing me to lead by example. Instead of pushing them out on the limb of vulnerability, they needed me to go there first. And when I did, they followed. So we started playing with the concept of self-disclosure in our groups. And we found that there's 3 times when this tool is super valuable. One is in role modeling. Right? If we check in, which is what we do at the beginning of our groups, we check in. The facilitator always checks in first. Let me show you what I'm looking for, and I check in. If we do certain activities in our groups that are certainly vulnerable, the facilitator always goes first to role model the activity, to set a bar, and to show the participants this is what we're looking for. It helps. It makes a difference in how group participants engage in those activities. The second time self-disclosure is really valuable is in validation. When somebody does get vulnerable and they're sharing a part of their story that they commonly don't talk about, the ability to use my story to validate them of, oh, boy, thanks for helping me remember my experiences, my feelings, my trauma, because I've been through that too. Me too is essentially validation. And that helps to build safety. It helps people to understand that they're not being judged or criticized or ridiculed or ostracized or rejected, but people are just listening and accepting and attempting to understand. Validation is a big deal with those people who are afraid to tell their stories. And then finally, the third time that self-disclosure can be super valuable is in what we call greasing the wheel. And one of my favorite stories about that is a man who was wrestling with a history of being sexually abused at a young age. And he had a lot of shame and a lot of guilt about that and rage. And we knew that this had happened to him because his partner, when we had contacted her, she had let us know that she believed that that had a large part to do with his violence. And so we listened to her and understood that that was something we hoped to unearth, but we didn't want to just go barreling in there and tell him that we knew that this was a part of his history. So one of our facilitators came into the group one night. The topic was sexual respect. And she shared her story of being sexually abused. And it freed him up. When he listened to her talk about her story, he was able to talk about his voluntarily. No one asked him to. He just brought it up. And I remember him saying that he could not leave that facilitator out on that limb by herself. But let me tell you what happened to me. One of these amazing classes when there was hardly a dry eye in the room. And we were there because we were able to grease the wheel through the amazing work of one of our facilitators. So I want you to know that self-disclosure, I was afraid of it for a long time. I actively worked against it. And it turned out that used appropriately, it's a powerful key that unlocks doors to more deeper stories, to more intense feelings, to people becoming less afraid of their own history. And I'd encourage you to give it a try. If you're like me, you'll probably be really afraid for a while. I was afraid, but it turned out that used appropriately, it really helps to keep victims and partners safer as those in our groups learn to look at themselves, become more internally focused, and become less afraid of their own story. Of course, like any tool, there's ways to use it that are at best ineffective and at worst, bringing on an undesirable effect. With self-disclosure, I've seen facilitators make the whole group about themselves. That's not the point. Facilitators that have more of a narcissistic bent are excited about the opportunity to talk about themselves for an hour and a half or whatever it would be. But that's not the point. The point is to use our story to be able to help advance our participants in learning to share their story. And if it's not doing that, then that tool is probably the wrong tool to be using in the circumstance. Now, there's lots of tools, lots of strategies, and we're training facilitators in, growing their bag of tricks through our facilitator training series. But the self-disclosure is commonly the one that, people who come to the trainings kind of take a step back and go, no, really, I've been trained to keep professional distance. And I can say, I know, me too. But let me tell you what happened to me. You guys have a great month of October. I hope that you have a safe Halloween. And we'll get something out in November again. And so until then, thanks for the good work that you're doing. And keep us posted. Let us know how you're doing and what kind of strategies and skills work for you that can help victims and partners to be safer. Talk to you soon.